Hello and welcome to episode 64 of PubShorts. My name is Dr. KK. I'm the Innovation Officer at Trinca and Inago. Hi, Tony. How are you doing?
Yeah, KK, good to see you. I'm very well, thank you. And I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm Vice President for Partnerships here at Inago, and I look after our relationships, mostly with publishers and societies, but increasingly working with universities around the world.
Right. Tony, why are we calling our episodes Know Your Rights? Because I think it's a song by your favorite artist, one of your favorite
It's
artists. Yeah.
well, it's I have gosh, I have so many favourite artists. It borrows its title from the 1982 song "Know Your Rights" by the wonderful Clash.
Hmm.
Know Your Rights, because in this episode we're looking at how the rule book for AI in manuscript preparation is changing, and what researchers need to understand when it comes to preparing and submitting content for publication.
Excellent. So we let's get to the first story itself. It is about a rule book, and it is done by the STM Association's Task and Finish group on AI labeling and technology. So it's a guideline. So basically, it is meant for the authors, reviewers, and all anybody who is involved in scholarly publishing. And it basically gives you a taxonomy or terminology, a classification of the different types of AI assistants. And
Yeah,
it is a draft report. It is currently being asked. I mean, it is requested to be reviewed by everyone, including us, actually, Tony. And the whole idea is, as we've talked about it, we need to have AI assistants in academic publishing to be very transparent. And
yeah.
so, before I get to the PDF itself, I want to ask you for your thoughts and your general thoughts on
This
yeah.
isn't the first time we've talked about the work of the STM Association, the Trade Association for Professional Society Academic Publishers. That so much of what they do is really establishing the guidelines and standards for the publishing community to work to. And I think this is just an excellent example of just trying to provide a nomenclature to provide, consistency in terms of how AI is and should be used and how it should be described. So I welcome this.
Yeah, a couple of things I forgot to mention is that the one of the main points that have been pointed out is that the publishers and the journals have, let's say, inconsistent guidelines regarding
Oh,
what transparent.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to have a conversation with societies. I won't name individual societies, but there's some societies who are being very open and very transparent in terms of, or asking authors to be very open and transparent. Everyone wants that transparency,
Mm.
but there's still a small number of publishers who are saying, look, you can't use AI at all. And
Right.
then, that as a position is going to change.
Right.
So having consistency in terms of how of the different types of AI that are being used and how those AI should be used is welcomed.
Right, and I'm switching to the PDF. This is the actual draft report. It's about 6-7 pages. But the main thing, the main the meat and potatoes of this would be this table, which has basically 9 types of AI assistance classifications, starting from refining, correcting, editing, or formatting the manuscript, or improving its clarity, all the way up to presentation of any kind of content generated by AI as though it were original research
Yeah,
data results. So basically, the extremes of what you can call AI assistance. So
yeah,
let me read my notes. These 9-point classification it aims to offer a clear, actionable roadmap of AI declarations, and there are sort of dual declaration stages: one at submission and one later, and to basically to enhance transparency. And translation is also covered here. I think it's somewhere here, if I'm not mistaken. A translation is also there somewhere here. And one thing, Tony, that this guidelines, the draft report, only covers the use of AI assistance in the context of manuscript preparation and not in previous or the all the research phases. And finally, it recommends that all publishers should at least have some sort of a consensus in terms of what kind of transparencies and disclosure statements
yeah,
should be there. And
yeah,
31st of May is the deadline for anybody to give feedback. So with that, I'll
yeah.
hand it back over to you. Your thoughts on this?
I think what at the moment the kind of statements that publishers are making are, look, dear author, if you're going to submit a paper, be transparent. Tell us that you've used AI in helping you prepare this manuscript. I think what you're going to find moving forward is that publishers are going to want to see more detail. Okay, if you're using AI, how are you using AI? Where have you used AI? What have you used AI to enhance and to summarize or to generate? And what you'll see is that those rules will also then be transferred into into those research organizations that are managing researchers, that employ researchers, in terms of, look, if this is the expectation, we need to adhere to these rules, and they'll start to implement those rules also locally. So I think, accreditation tools, standard acknowledgement tools are going to be increasingly common.
Right. So, Tony, would you consider that the use of AI, the responsible use of AI, would be a major theme in 2025, and like people like us, like you and me, as well as the organizations that we work for and the societies that we represent, should sort of join forces to ensure that, at least from a researchers, peer reviewers, and editors' point of view, things are clear.
Well, I've noticed a couple of large publishing organisations who have appointed somebody who is a manager or a director for the responsible use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it's acknowledgement that AI is not going to go away.
Yeah.
AI is more than just one thing. AI is a kind of whole panoply of infinite different tools and services, and authors, publishers, stakeholders, research organisations, funders need to understand and need to be able to set their policies against what about AI and how it should be used responsibly within their organisations. Right. Yes, I think it's going to be not just for this year; it's going to be an ongoing theme with increasing granularity.
Right, great. Moving on to a similarly themed story, but from China. So it is a story titled "Chinese Regulators Issue Requirements for the Labeling of AI-Generated Content."
Yeah.
Now, these are some regulations that are planned to take effect on the 1st of September 2025. The basic aim is to promote the healthy development of artificial intelligence, and many government departments in China have been involved in this initiative. And these labeling requirements are expected to increase transparency around AI. The same thing that we're talking about. Do you have any further thoughts on this? Do you have any thoughts on whether things are different in China and Chinese in the world of Chinese research in the context of DeepSeek now being available for the last maybe 6 months or so?
I suppose I have two comments to make on this.
Yeah.
This is just what the STM Trade Association is doing is mirroring what the Chinese are doing, except what they're doing is try to provide a bit more granularity and guidance in terms of what the rules are. What the Chinese government is trying to enforce what their guidance should be on their members. It's a well-known fact that the Chinese government, at least I believe it's a well-known fact, that the Chinese government are very keen to see themselves as world leaders in AI. And if we can demonstrate responsibility and proper use and enforcement of when rules are being broken, then I think it just reinforces their position as a global leader.
Right, and the reason why we are talking about AI use is because of stories like this. This is a news story from Nature. It is titled "Science Sleuths Flag Hundreds of Papers That Use AI Without Disclosing It," and they mention a lot of telltale signs. So these signs have been flagged in hundreds of papers by researchers, and this is basically indicating AI tool use without disclosure. So some papers had AI generated phrases like, for example, regenerated as of my last knowledge update, regenerate response as an AI language model. This should not have been there to begin with. And the publishers involved are investigating these papers but have varying policies on AI disclosure. That's what we just talked about. And integrity specialists argue for more transparency, and stealth corrections have also been done, Tony. I mean, the first versions of the published articles may have contained these, but then publishers and journals have silently corrected without letting the rest of the world know that they have removed this, which is not something that you agree with, I'm sure.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Good Lord. The rules are in place about granularity, and if a published paper contains these sorts of obviously AI generated phrases, then the editors are not doing their job. We have guardrails in place to be able to ensure that those sorts of texts are identified and corrected.
Right.
And I would expect publishers to want to be able to do the same.
Excellent. You mentioned guardrails. I mean, one of the things that I think you work with the product teams and I work with the product teams. We are very keen on ensuring that the products that we develop are within the AI guardrails, and we have maximum data security in place, especially for sensitive information, copyright
Yeah,
information, and everything. Right,
yeah.
Tony?
I was at a conference in the US last month, and you know, uh, the only thing the institutions want to talk about is security.
Mm.
Yes, you have these tools, but how safe? If we're using your tools, how safe is our data? So you're constantly having to remind them about um, AI isn't all about just training third party content illegally. It's
Mhm.
about working closely with organizations to make sure that we understand we can benefit from their content, but at the same time, their content, their rights to their content is being protected.
Right, right. All right, moving on to the next story. So, Tony, I'm going to ask you before I switch. Do you think AI will improve our lives significantly as we are entering the fifth year, I think, of generative AI? What are your predictions?
Do I think AI is going to improve? I think AI is already improving the quality of our life. You know, I mean, just from a personal perspective, the number of funny memes I've read in the last 2 weeks that have obviously been created by AI.
Right.
I laughed, and sadly, at the one last week, for example, of Trump dressing himself up as a pope.
I think I've
That
seen it.
which, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it certainly is going to, of course, it's going to enhance
Right.
everyone's life.
Right, right. So, Tony, this question was posed to researchers and they answered. So, the question was, will AI improve your life? Here's what 4,000 researchers think. Unfortunately, this article is behind the paywall, but I've had access to it at one point in time, and there are some wonderful sort of graphs to go through. So, quickly, I'll read my notes and we'll look at the graphs. So,
Yeah,
54% of researchers believe that AI will bring more benefits and risks compared to
yeah,
13% of the UK public. So
yeah.
I guess I would consider you as belong to the latter group, and both
Thank you.
researchers and both researchers and the public share concerns about AI-related disinformation and data privacy.
Yeah,
So then one other thing, in terms of data use, 71% of the public and 65% of the researchers worry about tech companies using personal data without consent. So these are some of the things that the researchers have voted. So, do you agree or disagree with increasing for the AI, causing an increased access to learning and education and making jobs easier? I think these are
uh,
straightforward, aren't they?
they're straightforward. I think there is a certain amount of ignorance around AI. I think I kind of, if you take that I have to take a kind of a helicopter view that AI is not one thing. AI is like
Hmm.
oxygen, or it's like blood, the bloodstream. It's a universe we plug into. How we use it is then up to us as individuals and as organizations as well. Um, and it is going to change everyone's work. It already is changing a lot of people's work. It's not, as far as I can see, though, it's not losing jobs. It's changing the way jobs are taking place.
Right.
But there is a lot of disinformation about AI, and so I'm not surprised that such a high proportion of people, the general public, have a mistrust because they don't fully understand
Right.
the use and benefits. Whereas researchers are using these tools on a daily basis,
Mhm.
clearly, and have a great appreciation for their benefits.
Mm. Right. In terms of what researchers thought how AI could negatively influence people's lives, so it is about disinformation, fake information,
Yeah,
which we are aware
yeah,
of, using personal data without consent, increasing
yeah,
cyber crime risks. Some of these we have
yeah, yeah,
already talked about. Yeah. So these
yeah.
are genuine concerns.
They are genuine concerns. Yeah,
Right, and there is a sort of spread, as you can see that the opinion is different, as in it's slightly it's tilted towards one side of things with public and the academic researchers, with industry workers. So this is regarding data concerns itself, whether or how the AI model vendors are training their AI with the data that they have. So interesting thoughts, and what I want to sort of think about, one we just mentioned AI guardrails at the end of the last story, and one of the things that we want to focus on when we develop our products is data security to ensure that if suppose we are working with sensitive information from a pharma company, we
yeah,
are HIPAA compliant to ensure that we have all the security guidelines and checks in place so so that data is not leaked. Right, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, security is everything. And as I say, every time we talk to a university or to a research organization, we have to reassure them that their content is going to be protected. It's not going to be used to train AI. That's not the genuine use. There is an argument that from time to time, particularly when you're creating a custom AI model for a
Mm-hmm.
customer, you have to, in order to make it as useful for them as possible, you have to train the content using their data. But then you delete that content as soon as you've used it, and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it with their permission, and you're giving them full transparency in terms of how that service has been used. But generally, there has to be a request and permission.
Right. Moving on to the next AI themed article, it is a philosophical question. It's a guest post from the Scholarly Kitchen. The open access AI conundrum. Does free to read mean free to train? Interesting question. So,
Ah,
yes,
yes, yes, yes,
yes.
yes.
So it explores the implications of open access content, which I think we'll cover some more in detail in terms of how open repositories are being, ravaged by cyber, I guess, spiders, crawlers, and chatbots and everything. But anyway, so the OA movement was intended originally, Tony, to make research freely accessible to humans. But AI training wasn't initially considered.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
AI models like ChatGPT used open access content to without legal barriers, raising concerns
yeah,
about copyright.
yeah, yeah.
And we have Creative Commons licenses in place, and there are different types of licenses. So we need to define. And so basically, the article is saying that this AI for training is completely different. As in for machine reading and machine training, and eventually use cases is completely different
Oh,
from that
I
for
can give you I can give you an example of this,
yeah,
KK. I mean, if I go back far enough, I'm old enough to be. Remember, when I worked for various society publishers,
yeah.
I'd be invited, or our organisations would be invited to send members to various UK trade associations or European trade associations to discuss copyright and copyright law and changes in copyright law. And one of the organisations I was part of was, or at least I participated in, was something called the Serial Publishers Executive, which is part of the UK Publishers Association. And for a couple of years, we had meetings where really the main topic of conversation was around rights and how rights should be protected. And the thing at the time was around this thing called text and data mining.
Mm-hmm.
What rights, what permissions should publishers have or provide in order for third parties to text and data mine their content? And I can tell you now, this is only 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can't ever once remember, a conversation around the use of artificial intelligence tools to use this content for training. It was more about populating publisher websites, or sort of stopping third parties from illegally reproducing content without the publisher's permissions. AI didn't come up at all. So I'm sure there is a catch-up process taking place.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm surprised at is kind of there hasn't been that sort of obvious discussion
Right.
around. Look, we got all these copyright commons, Creative Commons licenses in place. Do those different categories apply to AI, and if they don't apply, how should we adapt
Right.
the current rules?
Right. So that's a second part of the article in terms of what types of licensing that we need to sort of clarify or be transparent as to how
Yeah,
we can also include the scope of AI. Open data and research material to train AI as well.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So we are talking about AI in this episode. If somebody hasn't noticed yet, so we have a Wharton
Oh,
AI, Wharton AI and Analytics Initiative technical report. Very interesting, Tony. I think this is the highlight for all the stories among all the stories that we cover in this. So it is titled "Prompt Engineering is Complicated and Contingent," and basically it explores the variability in language model performance by the simple tweaking of prompts. And small changes in prompting can lead to different results. And these can also affect benchmarking and eventually perceived performance. So it gives you lots of, like, for example, if you send formatted prompts, for example, you get very good responses in return. And if it also, if you talk to AI politely as opposed to you give it orders, the response quality varies. But most importantly, if you give it structure and formatting, in the sense what machines generally do well with Markdown. I don't know if you're aware of Markdown. Basically, Markdown is a simplified version of HTML's text part. Like, if whatever you're reading in a page, this is a heading, this is regular text, and these have different sort of codes to represent it. So the simpler version of that is Markdown. And if you write to AI chatbots in a Markdown structured manner, using the right languages, giving the right context, you get very good results. And this is why prompt engineering is important. And there's some fantastic results that they're sharing here. So I don't know if you had a chance to take a deep look at this, but what are your thoughts so far?
I did, and it makes me realise how much more I need to learn about prompt engineering. I can't really add any, but I know that from our point of view, we're using prompt engineering to develop products which would absolutely revolutionise the way certain sort of checks are being run against certain types of content, academic content. But I leave this one. This one's very much in the hands of
Right.
experts like you, KK.
Right. Well, thanks, Tony. I don't consider myself to be an expert in this, but at least I try to learn and improve whatever I'm doing.
Yeah,
So we must not let the listeners and the viewers go without the key takeaway. So the LLM reliability is variable. Everybody who is using LLMs should be aware of it, and depend some of the response and the accuracy will depend on benchmarking standards that are used by different models. Prompts tweak matter, or tweaks of the prompts matter, but the model characteristic dominate, in the sense that if you're using different, if you cannot work the same sort of prompts for this different models. And finally,
yeah,
formatting, including structured prompts, etc., and using Markdown, for example, improve the response. And this I learned last year itself, and I've started writing all my sort of prompts in Markdown as much as I can. Anyway,
yeah,
interesting concept, and this is what we are trying to do in the Trinka AI Studio, which is a sort of a
yeah.
custom bespoke suite of apps for
Yeah,
research applications. Right, Tony?
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's right. And if researchers are using Trinker AI Studio and they write a particularly good prompt, which I think can be shared by colleagues within their organization, they can simply they can either host it on the AI Studio and allow them their colleagues to share via the studio.
Right, and surprisingly, the last article is also on AI. The main article, that is. So it is from Ethan Mollick's One Useful Thing blog, and it's titled "On Jagged AGI, O3 Gemini 2.5 and Everything After." So
Okay, KK, you know what I'm going to ask you. What
what
is jagged AGI?
what is AGI, Tony? Let me ask you that.
It's artificial general intelligence.
All
It's the
right.
ability for
Yeah. So
AI to sort of act and behave more like a human brain.
right. So as per Ethan Mollick, what he refers to jagged AGI is the fact that the different aspects of AI, which eventually would lead to artificial general intelligence, are not developing or progressing as in pace with each other. So there will
Yeah,
be a jagged sort of eventual sort of path to eventually
trajectory,
a trajectory. Yeah,
trajectory. Yeah,
trajectory to reach. Yeah. So it discusses, apart from obviously jagged AGI definitions, it discusses the challenges measuring AI's intelligence, creativity, and empathy. And it covers points regarding the debates around what is AGI and what is consciousness, and it discusses obviously the newer models and defines AGI. And finally, it mentions the potential of AI to change how we work and live despite its current limitations, which is what I think we covered in that survey results as well. And
yeah.
finally, I love the fact that Ethan always covers the societal and technological sort of implications of AI advances. An excellent read, I would say. And this blog has for the last 6 months or so, since we've started doing PubShorts, this has become one of my favorite blogs.
Yeah. I suppose my concern about jagged AGI is like if you're a bridge builder,
Mhm.
and if you're using the latest technology, and the concrete technology is fantastic, but the technology to design structures and foundations of bridges isn't keeping up.
Right.
What happens to the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The,
it's very important.
are you
We're
referring to
aware of the
the
limitations.
STM Association infographic regarding
Once again.
All right, time for quick hits. Maybe not from AI, but we start with AI in a nuclear power power plant, because I chose this story because we are both fans of science fiction, and this is probably a science fiction story waiting to evolve. So Gizmodo is reporting that AI is being first used in the Diablo Canyon in California power plant to comply with regulations. It's just checking whether I mean, sorry, the plant is complying with the regulations. And lawmakers and express, obviously the need for AI regulations themselves. The AI tool is called Neutron Enterprise, and it helps with document navigation, which is not unlike what we do with the co-pilot in Inago Read. And most importantly, like in our Inago peer review assistant, Tony, AI is not making decisions but just aiding the workers themselves to
Yeah,
make the
yeah,
decisions.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Any
And
thoughts on
again,
this? Yeah.
reinforces the importance of AI. They clearly understand the need for guardrails, and they put those guardrails in place.
Right. Right.
And we do exactly the same with our own AI tools. Yes, the tools are there to support the work of the researcher, not to take over the work of the researcher. And, those guardrails are extremely important.
Right. So I think I have accidentally closed one story here. So this is a story. So these are. Is this the right story, Tony? No, it's not. Okay. So let me just quickly look it up.
My Irma,
Yeah, my Irma. I hope I can find it.
that's it.
Yeah, this one. Right. So, Tony, I think you have a lot to speak about this. Myanmar, the Malaysian Association of Research Managers and Administrators, has partnered with Trinka AI. Very proud movement for us. This collaboration gives over 25 member institutions in Malaysia access to Trinka AI's writing tools. And it's a wonderful news. And I haven't, I mean, I've been to Indonesia. I haven't been to Malaysia to talk about Trinka AI. So, what are your thoughts on it? I believe you are being quoted here as well.
Yes, lucky me. No, we are. What we're trying to do as an organisation is to widen the use of our AI tools. And traditionally, it can be the individual researcher who decides whether to use AI for their own use. It can be their departments within their faculty. They might decide, what are the most appropriate tools. It might be even their own institution that decides, which tools are most relevant and most appropriate for use. And what this is taking it to the level again, and sort of in the data content world, in the journals world, in the books world, something that's been in place for many, many years.
Mhm.
But now that's working with consortia, with groups of libraries, buying clubs like this,
Mhm.
who then buy on behalf of their members.
Right.
So, this is one in Malaysia where the Research Managers Association have bought for 25, have recommended its use for 25 institutions. We've got another story coming up about one in Spain, for example.
Yeah.
With
Let's cover this. Let's cover this right away. I think it is this, right?
It's the same story again.
Mhm.
So basically, it's buying clubs, consortia buying or recommending at least Trinka AI tools on behalf of more than just their own institution, but a group of institutions that are under a single umbrella.
Mhm.
And we're going to see a lot more of that. And that's already happening.
Right.
And it makes absolute sense. Researchers are using it. Trinka's been used, tens of millions of times by individual researchers, and that's being noticed and picked up by their institutions. So it's a great and very positive thing to see.
Right. For the listeners, because they're not reading, can you explain? I mean, read this out. I cannot. I will maybe.
The Consorcio de Bibliotecas Universitarias de Andalucía, CBUA. Yes, it's the consortium of Andalusian university libraries. So it's university libraries from a region in Spain, a very important region in Spain,
Right.
who are buying Trinka AI as a tool to support the work of their research members.
Right. Tony, you recently had you visited the US and met with a lot of institutions across the US in terms of AI use and everything. What is the general consensus? What are the things that they want help in terms of AI related technological?
Okay. So my recent visit to the US focused mostly with university libraries. I attended a very large, very prestigious research library conference called ACRL, the Association of College and Research Libraries. My overriding opinion there, or my overriding view there, coming back on an opinion, was how varied the knowledge was of AI, the use of AI, or how different the policies were even from institution to institution within a single state. A lot of institutions didn't even have a policy formulated by the AI, whereas on the other hand, you had some other more advanced institutions, but which should have policies. I was talking to one very large, university who was saying, even in my own institution, I've got the one department, one in building A,
Right.
the philosophy department is saying you will not use AI for any aspects of your writing, your research. Whereas in the next building, in the business school, it's mandated.
Mm-hmm.
They're forcing their users to use AI because they're saying, look, you're going to be using this in business.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave the university going into the real world, you have to understand what AI tools can do.
Right.
So there is such a wide range of policies, and it must be extraordinarily difficult to try and sort of have a single policy across an entire organization. But that's what they're trying to do, is to set the rules.
Right.
Like STM is setting the rules for publishers and for researchers. That should be carried out by their research organizations and funders.
Interesting. I mean, you mentioned the STM thing. Were there talks about whether they need to be aware of how students and researchers are using AI, and whether they are using it sort of permissibly or ethically? Were there conversations around it?
Um, there were when we started this conversation. Yeah, I think there's kind of an acknowledgement that AI is being used, and I don't think they know necessarily how AI is being used,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of why we developed this DocuMark tool.
Yes.
DocuMark tool allows a research organization to be able to understand, look, is AI being used to generate text here? Are they simply cutting, pasting text from third-party sources? How much of this text has actually been created manually by hand, somebody physically typing in
Right.
to a document, so they can actually see
Right.
what the researcher has done. As long as they're using the DocuMark tool as part of the writing process,
Mm-hmm.
then they can get a report back to see how much AI is actually being used.
Right. It sounds fascinating. If somebody is interested to know more about DocuMark, they can find it on our website, Tony, maybe?
They can. They just
Yeah.
have to search Inago DocuMark, yeah, or they can contact me and I can put them in touch with the right person.
Excellent, excellent. So, Tony, as you have seen, I've been contemplating on AI use in academia all through the weekend. I'm sure you have not been doing that. You have been doing something else.
Well, we had a holiday weekend here in the UK because
Yeah.
many years ago the British government decided to celebrate May Day, but not to celebrate May Day on the 1st of May every year, because it means sometimes that 1st of May would fall on a weekend, and therefore people wouldn't get the holidays.
Right.
So what we said was, okay, we would celebrate May Day on the first Monday of every month, regardless of what day it was.
Right.
First Monday in May, regardless of what the date was, that would be our May Day. So we had a nice long holiday weekend, and as always, there was a lot of music for me. So I performed in various bands, and we had 2 gigs over the weekend, which was great fun.
Excellent, excellent. So, Tony, before we haven't even introduced what PubShorts is and where people can find more about PubShorts and leave comments and get in touch with us. So do that, and let's wrap up this episode.
Yeah. So listen, this is episode 64 of PubShorts. So when I'm 64, I'll be recording PubShorts. PubShorts. I even might get the name wrong. So PubShorts is, as you'll have noticed from this episode, a discussion between KK and I on stories that we found interesting, related to the world of academic research communication. So from a broader sense, whether it's technology, whether it's rights, copyright, etc. And you can find all 63 previous episodes of PubShorts over on the Inago channel on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Just search for the PubShorts playlist, and you can spend hours of fun, days of fun, watching all previous 63 episodes.
Days, yes. I hope that it's
Press
just
like, share with your colleagues, and send us your ideas for future topics.
Right. And you can also get in touch with us on LinkedIn or on social media. You can find us there. And we would love to know what you thought about what we discussed. If suppose you have any thoughts on what kind of disclosure statements that if you're a researcher, you should provide, and what sort of AI assistance you consider as perfectly permissible, because we want
absolutely.
to hear your responses as well.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. There's such a sort of divergence of opinion
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what I mean, look at that story we talked about earlier on. 53% of researchers think
Yeah.
it's a good thing, compared to 13% of the general public. Well, what do the researchers know that the general public doesn't know?
Right. So to explore and contemplate and philosophize all of this, we will have to have other episodes of Pop Shots, which you can catch in the coming days. And until then, until the next episode, this is Dr. KK signing off on behalf of the rest of the team and Tony. We will see you in the next one. Bye, Tony.
See you next time.